weekend. Good Mother's Day. Appreciate everybody joining us again today. So let me just talk for a second about some of the numbers. The number of new admissions to the hospital continues to trend downward. This is a Saturday number. I don't actually have a Sunday number. Saturday's number, there were 31 new people admitted to the hospital. And if we can, we can post these graphs after we get today's graph, which we'll get at 3 o'clock. We can post these also to our Facebook page. But so number of new hospital admissions is going down. That's excellent. In addition, of course, we have the moving average on the average number of people in the hospital right now is 540, not the average, I'm sorry, I'm messing this up. The number of people in the hospital today is 540. And that has also been going down slightly. And there's been 1,648 as of Saturday, people who were in the hospital who have been discharged. So that's also a good number. Now, we know that, you all know that on Friday, remind me tomorrow, I'm sorry, there's something going on this computer, sort of, as always, right? On Friday, we announced, or we talked about how we were going to crack the door open a bit on having some businesses reopen. One of the things, and I'll just show you the stack for kicks. This is the stack of various guidelines all weekend to try to make sure that all these are in sync. We had drafts of these last Thursday and Friday. Make sure I don't forget one for transportation, construction, manufacturing and repair, personal services. So we think, fingers crossed, we'll have these posted by in the next couple of hours. We just try not to put them out without typos and inconsistencies in them, because they really are 99.5% of the way there. Of course, I wish they were all the way there, as I know you all do, but just bear with us, just a little bit more patience so that we have these guidelines that are in both the one time. Wearing face coverings. So they're fairly detailed in terms of giving people guidelines about how to go back to work if you cannot work from home. Of course, we're still encouraging working from home, how to go back to work safely with face masks, face coverings, some industries, gloves, how to be at least 6 feet apart from your coworkers, how to rearrange desks, workspaces, waiting rooms, how to do all of that so that we have the best chance of opening our economy a little bit without substantially increasing the number of people who get COVID. So that's what's being worked on right now. I really just have to say thank you so much to the industry groups who have worked on this. Many of you don't use cash now. Cash is one of those things, if you're a little older, you might carry cash. If you're younger, you're probably just carrying your phone. But so trying to minimize the ways in which the virus might spread. With regard to City Hall, some of you asked me some questions about that. We expect to crack the door open on City Hall also on May the 18th, but not to visitors. We have made that decision, and we're going to be actually discussing that tomorrow morning with a number of our department heads. We're thinking, and again, we're going to watch what happens, but we're thinking maybe around the first part of June is when we would begin seeing some visitors in City Hall. And so some people are very interested in that. Are there questions?
A couple of questions.
Okay.
A couple of people are asking if you could offer some examples of the guidelines that are being recommended for hair and nail salons and guidelines recommended for employees at restaurants.
Just so happens that I can. So in personal services, hair salons, barber shops, those personal services. Workplace, if you're try to stagger your work shifts so that you can maintain at least 6 feet of separation from the person who's working with you. And I thought some of these were interesting, make sure customers make appointments. Make sure they wait in their car until the time of their appointment if you're in a shop or a place where there might be people waiting. You've got their cell phone numbers. You can text them so that it's not a social gathering in your waiting area. Your customers have to wear face coverings. No visitors in the beauty parlor or the salon, unless it would be somebody who would have to be helping someone get there. So, just the minimum number of people there. Employees, in addition to the customer, employees, or maybe you're the salon owner, that are working there, when you have to have face-to-face contact, say nail care or hair salon, the employee has to also wear a face mask, surgical face mask in that case, not just a cloth covering, and could consider a face shield in that case. Don't allow people to bring in food, sodas, beverages. Make sure that your customers aren't touching product. Like if you go to a hair salon, often they'll have shampoo or conditioner or hair products all there, and you might pick it up and look at it. Don't allow that so that you're not, no one's leaving germs on products that are there. So that's some of the things. There's a lot in here about cleaning and sanitizing procedures. Dedicate a team member to oversee that. Be sure you do a thorough daily clean between each customer, between each client who's maybe getting their hair done or something. Wash your hands between every customer. Consider gloves. Make sure your ventilation systems are working properly so that you have a good airflow. All those are some of the guidelines for, and you'll be able to read them yourself just as soon as they are posted. And city and county, these will be the same in the city and in the county, which I think is only sensible.
A question from one of your viewers, Andrew, Mayor, wants
Hi,
to
Andrew.
know what kind of recommendations or guidelines are being set forth since the city is allowing bars to reopen on May 18th, even bars that don't necessarily serve lots of food.
So let me clarify this difference, and I'm sorry that this is confusing. St. Louis County has said that the only bars that can open are the bars that serve full meals. So some bars in the county can also be open. What we have said is that we don't know what is a full meal. Is pizza a full meal? Is a sandwich and a bag of chips a full meal? So we are making sure that we don't have this conflict between a bar and a restaurant, who's a bar. And we are saying everybody, bars or restaurants, have to follow the same protocols, have to be 6 feet apart, have to seat people 6 feet apart, have to do the same cleaning, have to do the same, wear masks. What we're saying is just that everybody has to be the same, both restaurants and bars. You know, when you walk into a restaurant, let's say a place where you might be going to sit down at a table to eat, but you walk into some bars and they also have tables where you can sit down and eat. So it's just a difference in terminology, I think, not in substance. And so we just want to make very sure that any bars that are open follow the same guidelines as restaurants.
This was an interesting question from one of your viewers, Emily. Wants to know how much coordination, if any, was there with our friends across the river in Illinois, and how much did we pay attention to what Governor Pritzker was doing?
So the working groups that have worked on these guidelines, they have also included some folks from Illinois. Now, you know the stay-at-home order is still in place in Illinois, although it's getting ready to be eased in certain areas. So we included them in talking about what these guidelines should be, but of course we don't have authority. People in Missouri don't have authority in Illinois, and vice versa. So this is just one of those things where we're talking back and forth because I think I failed to mention that the chamber has also been very involved in providing these guidelines, and they, of course, and the Explore St. Louis, they're all interested in the whole region and work for the whole region, and so they have been included as well.
Ian is watching, Mayor, and he's a gym owner and wants to know what needs to happen to move past phase 1 so we can begin to consider when gyms and fitness centers can reopen.
So gyms are, as you know, if you're a gym owner, whole different animal. A lot of machines, a lot of people sweating, a lot of people breathing hard. I think we are going to think hard about what could that look like. Gyms in apartment buildings should remain closed. Gyms that are freestanding gyms, gyms in hotels, they should all remain closed for right now. We're hoping that in a few weeks that may be eased, but right now those gyms have to remain closed. I think if you are a gym owner, I would invite you to perhaps send in what you think the guidelines should be. You know a lot about how to operate a gym and how you think you could keep your clients safe and not spread a virus in a gym. So I would invite you to do that.
When can we expect to host conferences of more than 500 people in the city of St. Louis?
It's going to be a while. I don't know when we can expect to have a convention, a conference of 500 people. I think we have some guidelines, meeting rooms and ballrooms, banquet rooms, they all remain closed in phase one. It will depend on the setup of the room, depend on how people move around. I think it's likely to be a while before we have a meeting or conference of 500 people.
Some people asking if in the city's recommendations, if there was any consideration given to the difference between small boutique sort of gyms or clubs, fitness centers, salons versus larger venues, or if they're all being treated the same.
Right now, they're all being treated the same, but I would invite you to send us what you think. I know they aren't all the same, and so I think that's one of those real nuanced areas that has to be worked through.
John has one of our more popular questions about pools and rec centers in the city over the summer.
I just hate giving you guys these answers, if you want to know the truth. No pools this summer, at least not for probably the whole summer. But we're not even to Memorial Day yet, so I'm just going to say that, city pools will be closed this summer. You don't open a pool like that, it takes a while, you have to have staff. So pools will be closed.
Has the city...
I hope I can come back and change my mind on that, because honest to gosh, I hate giving you guys these answers, but I bear in mind that this is to try to crack the door open a little bit, not just swing it wide open, and so that we can continue to watch what happens here.
Has the city given any consideration to closing some streets so people and maybe even businesses have more room to operate and therefore people won't be more crowded?
So I actually think that's a great idea. I know that I've seen a couple of cities who have closed parts of street or half of a street in order to allow restaurant dining outside, perhaps in an area that doesn't have much sidewalk space. I think that's something we should seriously consider. Maybe government shouldn't pick the street, but I would welcome you, if you're a business owner along a street, to get together with some others. There are some problems with that. You'll be taking up parking, and cars will be displaced. For me, that's okay. So I think we ought to pick a couple of places and figure out how that might work, because there's a belief that if you're outside, it's better to be dining outside, let's say, than to be dining inside in a confined space. So we ought to make way. We ought to ease up here and make a little way for more outside dining and activities. Now, that can't turn into a big street party, where everybody's socializing and all that. But I think we ought to try that. I really do. So I bet somebody out there has an idea for which street it should be or which block it should be on a street. And we certainly are going to be willing to look at that.
That was the same question. This is a question left over from Friday, but what do you say to a business owner who doesn't want to open their business? Are they required to under our easing of restrictions?
Thank you for asking that question. You're absolutely not required to open. That if you're a restaurant, you're not required to open. If you're a retail store, you're not required. If you're a salon, you're not required. In fact, if you're trepidatious about that, if you don't feel comfortable, maybe don't have enough PPE or don't feel that you do, then I think you ought to wait. I've seen in a lot of areas of the country, and even here in Missouri, just because you can open doesn't mean that you should, or that certainly doesn't mean that you must. We've got to start down this path and see how this goes.
On May 18th, will it be okay for parents to see other family members and maybe hug each other again, or are social gatherings still prohibited?
You're going to make me answer that question?
Just going through the people's questions.
You know, you really still have to be careful. There is a lot of virus out there. And we know that people have the virus who we haven't tested, and we don't know that they have the virus. So you're going to have to use some common sense about that. There is a 10-person gathering limit that's still in effect for social gatherings. If you are older, if you have an underlying health condition, you just have to be very careful about that. You know, these air hugs, we do this and other people do. It's tough though. It really is tough. So you've got to limit exposure. And so I'm going to leave that up to you with a very cautionary look.
Okay, maybe another unpopular question, but can you speak to the future of large summertime festivals in the city of St. Louis, like Taste of St. Louis, and in the same boat, what about places like the Zoo, the Muni, the Art Museum, the Arch, and all those fun places?
So the Zoo, the Muni, the Art Museum, the Arch, Soldiers Memorial, Science Center, Missouri Botanical Gardens, all those places. They remain closed right now. And we have asked them to submit their plans to the health department, the city health department. Most of those venues are in the city of St. Louis. So we've asked them to submit their plans because each one of those venues is going to have a different plan. I've spoken with several of them. Most of them don't want to and don't plan to open on the 18th. Well, none of them can open on the 18th, but they don't even plan to open maybe a week later or so. But we have to look at what their plans are and how they would achieve this physical distancing. I'm going to start calling it physical distancing instead of social distancing, because we want to be socially connected with one another, emotionally connected, but we do need to be physically apart. So they are going to submit their plans to the city health department. We're going to go through their plans with them and make a determination about when they might be able to open. Now, there was an earlier part to that question. That was the venues. Oh,
Summertime
the
festivals.
So the Pride Parade, the Q and the Lou, Taste St. Louis, maybe Annie Malone's. Those are big festivals where lots of people are crowded together in a small space. And